Hello, and welcome to another episode on the Move.Talk.Thrive podcast. Lizzy and I are joined today with a very special guest, Dr. Siobhan Kennedy-Costantini. She is a child development specialist, educator, and founder of Science Minded, where she shares evidence-based resources for parents and early childhood professionals. She has a PhD in developmental psychology and over 15 years of experience across research, teaching, and practice. Siobhan is known for making developmental science deeply human, practical, and accessible. She's a mum of two little humans and brings real honesty and humor to the ups and downs of parenting. Lizzy and I really enjoyed this conversation. We chatted all things children, child development, clinical development. We talked about parenting, COVID times, the educator sector and childcare system, which is under a lot of scrutiny at the moment. Overall, it was a really great chat with her. We explored lots of different topics. We hope you really enjoy this and get lots out of it. So listen in and enjoy.
We are child development obsessed, business besties, and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzy Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackey, Australian speech pathologist,
And this is the Move.Talk.Thrive podcast. All right, I am so excited to have you here today, Siobhan, child development extraordinaire, really. Like looking at your bio, it is so impressive. I am so excited to bring your wisdom to our podcast. Welcome on today.
So much for having me, guys. I'm really happy to be here, and I always nerd out talking about all this stuff, so I love to do so with like-minded people.
Amazing. So I think I have introduced you to our listeners, but maybe in your words, do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and what you do week in, week out?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dr. Siobhan Kennedy-Costantini. My background is in developmental psychology. That's what I studied at university or specialized in. I did my PhD, and then I very much thought I was going to be an academic. So I continued that, trained, did a postdoc in New Zealand and did that, and then got pregnant, decided we wanted to with my husband, like that was an intentional choice. Sorry, the way it sounded like a baby derailed my career. Not at all. Intentionally got pregnant with my husband, and then we decided to come home to Brisbane to raise our kiddos. And then COVID hit, which affected the whole world, but very much affected the way that universities were hiring or not hiring. So I didn't have a job, came home pregnant. Neither of us had jobs, which wasn't the original plan. And then kind of got into mumland and the mum Instagram deep hole that is. And then I saw all these people spouting stuff about child development, and I knew from all my research and my work, I'm like, well, that's not right. That's not right. Someone really needs to be sharing some evidence-based stuff out here. And then I was like, oh, I'm someone. I could complain about it or I could do something about it. So I kind of started my account to share some of the things I knew and I thought were important and that other people might like to know. And then I decided that people didn't know enough about like the importance of sensory play in early childhood. And I was doing all of these things at home with my kiddo, all of these rich sensory experiences. And so I started a little community play group where I kind of hosted it and had sensory stuff. And then some daycares saw what I was doing because I was posting about it. And they were like, can you bring that here? And I've basically been doing that ever since. So I go into daycare centers and I run sensory programs. And then I've moved in the last year into more professional development, helping daycares really enrich their relationships and be more responsive in their care, which, as we all know, is so important for little ones. But yeah, that's what I tend to do with my time.
So good. I mean, there's so many things there, and what an incredible journey. What I love to hear, because I think it is similar to Em and I, is that, you started essentially started a business while, we term it an account on Instagram. It has developed or evolved into a business, and you did that when you had babies, which Both Em and I have done the same thing. And I think that that's so beautiful because so many women think that, having babies derails their career as you put yourself. And really, it's not that at all, is it? It's just like an evolution and it helps you land on sometimes a bit of a different path. But I think it's pretty amazing to think that that journey happens while we're having babies.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's nothing like having a small human brought into your life to really change your perspective or maybe bring it into clarity and just be like, right, what matters? What's important to me? And I think as well, like it's so one of the main reasons actually that I was so drawn to posting is that it really kind of kicked my brain into action again.
Mm.
Which I think almost all mums can relate to the idea that even though caring for our little ones is so rewarding, it's not necessarily the most intellectually stimulating thing. So having an outlet for that is really, really helpful. And that's what I found.
Yeah, amazing. And did you like you just kind of intuitively did it, didn't you? You didn't kind of have a schedule because that's something that Em and I don't know whether we've talked about it on the podcast, Em, have we? Like our the way we manage business and babies at the same time is probably, I don't think we have actually.
Maybe like here and
Yeah.
there. Maybe not a
Yeah.
full combo, but it's all very intuitive. Like, you sort of come from a background in child development, you've been working with children your entire career, and then you have your own child, and then you sort of go, oh, this is different, like different to what I had thought and what I knew as just working as a clinician, then to being a mum. And then it sort of evolves, like you're saying, Lizzie. Do you think it changed? With me saying that, do you think that changed for you, Siobhan? Like, because you're working with research and then you then had your own child. Did your perspectives change from when you were just a clinician before?
Yeah, I think this is something that lots of people talk about, but I had a lot more compassion,
Yeah.
which for mums that I had maybe been not as generous to in my own, like I never said anything, but you're like, oh, why don't you, maybe you should, and you're like, oh, you're exhausted. So of
Yeah.
course that's why you do you're giving them whatever, because you're just trying to get through the day. So I had a lot more compassion from that perspective. But I think I had a bit of a different one in that because my eldest boy was born during COVID. And Lizzie, was your youngest was a COVID baby too?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
both mine were COVID
both.
babies as well.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Yeah. And I think it was really tricky because obviously all of my, well, not all, but a lot of my work pre-children was working with, yeah, people who lived in the normal world. And then COVID really changed what things were. So all of the support that I thought I had, and what the main reason we came home from New Zealand was to have our family around us. And
Mm.
then we were in the depths of lockdowns, and they were nearby, but we couldn't have them. So it was actually hugely different because it wasn't what we had thought it would or could be. But that's a whole other
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. And I guess, because were you doing the sensory classes pre-COVID or was that just post?
Most, no, all post. But we did
Yeah.
have there was a second, like in 2022, I think there was like a 4 week period where there was a mask mandate. And so I did have a few sensory classes with a mask mandate, which was weird and
Yeah.
awkward, and we did it, but it was very strange and
Mm.
difficult,
Yeah.
particularly with little, like mostly it was little babies, kind of babies 8 months and younger. So the parents felt weird being out, and also they knew so often they knew they had to be out because they just needed that social experience of being in the world and around other people.
Mm.
But then also they were worried for their bubs, and yeah, it was a different. It's funny. I always think about, because obviously, like now we're living quote unquote life post COVID, but I just think about like in 10 years, I'm going to have to answer my kids like history questions about what was it like to live through COVID for the
Mhm.
Yeah.
first time or something.
Absolutely. They'll have it in the textbooks, right?
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's
Yeah. Well,
interesting talking about COVID because I was just reading this morning. Um, I don't know if are you still like in the academic world or not as much now?
I have ties, but not formally, no.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I always ask because I'm not really an academic, but I do like reading the research. So
Mm.
I always have to make sure that I'm saying the right thing. But I was reading a study this morning, and I mean, there's not a lot yet that we've seen coming out talking about children's like communication skills post COVID. So they're still starting to come out now, and there was one that just came out a couple of months ago, and it was from children in Greece, but the principles I think can be applied. It was a big cohort, but it was saying that children now, compared to pre-COVID and even during COVID, they're now having or seeing a lot more atypical language development, which is what I sort of specialize with language. And they were saying, there's still lots of gaps and they need to study more into this area. But I just thought, oh, like that's just, I mean, that's kind of the trends that we've seen on the ground, but just to have research backing it up that children are having more and more difficulties now. And they're sort of saying we don't know what that's attributed to, whether it's the masks or the lack of facial expression or the lack of contact or even the increase in um, screen time, because that's what was an option for parents during those times. They don't know what that's attributed to, but it's going to be
Factors.
interesting, the research that continues to come out about these COVID babies and
Yeah,
what's
it's
happening.
fascinating. There's so much research across lots of domains. Obviously, you specialize with language, and you're right, like whether or not masks do or don't. And I can't imagine they don't have some impact.
Yeah, right.
Kids are
Totally. Absolutely.
like a critical window of development for language. But then obviously schools know this on the ground, like you're saying, that they've got there's schools that still don't even have close to their full attendance rate because there's just so
Yeah.
much school, which comes from a place of absolute anxiety and stress. And then that's probably a factor that's affecting these children's development is their parents were terrified all the time.
Mm.
And then not to mention babies who were born during that period. Like we know that maternal stress can have impacts in utero on the growing fetus. And the degree to which women experience stress and the degree to which that passed on, we don't know. And there's big, huge longitudinal and like cohort data that's coming out about that kind of stuff. But we know from the Queensland flood study and from there was in Canada an ice storm study that has shown that it can affect children in their development. So I
Yeah,
can't see how it doesn't affect
yeah,
things. I
yeah,
think it
yeah.
will continue to affect things for decades to come.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to
Absolutely.
watch. Yeah.
Like even just the blowout on like illness, like, seeing everyone getting so sick. It must have been like the worst years of illness since COVID. Just these kind of unexpected things. I mean, from my perspective, it's quite unexpected. And I know Marley's class numbers, he's in prep. The class numbers are so small. Like, and the kindies weren't full last year. Yeah, it will be very fascinating to see the impact, like in the years to come, I think.
Mm.
So, have you kind of seen any of that impact in the work that you're doing, or is because so you do the sensory classes, you do the PD for educators, and you've got a course for parents as well, and that's around the circle of security, is that right?
Yeah, so I run Circle of Security workshops. So Circle of Security came out of um, America and it's been running since the late 80s, early 90s. So it's all about it's parenting intervention, but it's a relationship focused parenting intervention. So where triple P and hand in hand and other kind of behavior, they're more focused on changing behaviors. Whereas Circle of Security is all about how when you improve the relationship behavior, positive behavior change comes naturally.
Mm.
And so I take a lot of those elements and share them with educators and talk about how, like, when it comes down to it, humans, our evolution hasn't really caught up with where we are. And so babies do get stressed when they're left with someone they don't know. And that is stressful. And of course, they're going to have a reaction. And the way we can improve that situation is by really focusing on relationship and building that relationship up so that so like it's often I hear educators go, oh, but they're safe. Why are they stressed? They're in a warm, safe, comfortable place. It's like, yeah, but they don't know that. Their body
Mm.
doesn't know that they're safe. And so we have to show them that they're safe instead of just tell them. So I saw it today and I get where it's coming from. But educators saying, you're okay, you're okay. I'm like, well, they're crying, so they're not
Yeah.
okay. They're telling you they're not okay with every fiber of their being. So it's different. And I mean, I say it too sometimes with my boyos, like they'll be they'll hurt themselves and we're like, oh, you're okay, and give them a cuddle. But like trying to shift the from not you're okay, but like, how can I help? I'm here to help, and picking them up and kind of seeing that emotional experience as a valid experience, and comforting them through it rather than trying to stop them feeling it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I have some uh just some difficulties with my eldest, just in terms of resilience and whatnot. And I feel really torn between kind of meeting him there and making him feel seen and heard, and then him seeing that and almost, it's almost, yeah, it's kind of like they really kind of use that, and then I'm like, oh no, I'm responding to this, and so he's doing it more, and just really knowing how to behave and support them, I guess. And then of course from a therapy perspective, it's like a whole another level. And I guess like most of our listeners are probably a bit of column A and a bit of column B. Hey, Em, like
Yeah.
we're going to have therapists and practitioners, but they're probably parents as well. And I just think from a clinical perspective, knowing how to support a child in that moment of dysregulation, and I guess us as exercise physiologists, we have got strategies to help with regulation through movement and whatnot. And you will no doubt be exactly the same through language. Um, but so your kind of wheelhouse is then through connection and relationships.
And I think yeah, I really relate to what you were saying about you with your eldest. My eldest is also as the language I tend to use is that he's a sensitive soul.
Yeah.
So in terms of temperament, he is a sensitive temperament, and feels things so deeply. I like, the best example I can get was recently I was in the backyard and I heard a blood curdling scream. And I remember having the thought, like, immediate fear response. And then I was like, okay, turn around. Be like, I was saying to myself, be prepared to see bone, to see blood. Like, we're going to head to the hospital. Like, that's what, like, it was that level of reaction. I turn around and I hold him, I pick him up, I say, I check, there's no blood, there's nothing. I say, oh, what's going on, buddy? And he went, there was a spider. There was just a
Mm.
spider in the garden. And for him, it's real. So I'm not to try and minimize his experience. That was exactly how he felt, and it felt that big and huge to him. But far out, it's hard.
Yeah.
Um,
So what
and
did you do?
oh, I just cuddled him and went, wow, you were so scared. And then inside I went, oh my goodness, are you serious? Are you serious right now? And we do have conversations when he's calm and being like, do you know when you have those really big screams, mommy and daddy think that something's broken? And he goes, yeah, but I was scared. And was like, I know you were. So like, it's real for him. And I think over time he will learn to modulate. And like, this sounds awful, but I think it's probably, I don't think we can do too much to try and reduce that, because I think it is so primal and so like
Mm.
neurologically wired. Like there's all this research to show that highly sensitive people literally have more sensitive bodies and systems. They're more likely to have things like autoimmune diseases. They're more likely, like, their neurology is more sensitive. They pick up on things, and they smell things more easily. They see things, they notice things, which is beneficial, like, evolutionarily, right? We need people to notice. There are people
Mm.
who are good at that. And then we also need the more relaxed people who, like, don't jump every time they hear a branch snap or something. We
I
need
am
all.
one of those sensitive people. I am
Yeah,
one
now
of those
I am
sensitive
too.
people.
I am too. And it's so funny. My husband is not, and my youngest
Neither is
child is not. And the reason, like, the moment I noticed, like, I kind of had a beautiful picture of the four of us, and like our kind of temperament types. We were at the Matildas game a few years ago, when they were in the semifinals. So we're at a
Yeah.
friend's party. My youngest was 3 months old. There were lots of people. It was like a wonderful time, like celebration. Everyone was having a great time. My big boy must have been 3.5 or so. And obviously soccer is so exciting. It's like nothing, 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 something happens and everyone cheers and it's nothing, nothing. And anyway, and so I think it must have been, I don't know whether we prevented a goal or the Matildas scored a goal, I can't remember, but the whole room erupted. And my 3-year-old and I was holding the baby, we both jumped out of our skin, and then we're like, oh, yay, yay, yay. And then my husband and my 3-month-old were just kind of going, yay, like they didn't
Yeah.
react at all. But my eldest and I, we're the jumpy ones, we're the sensitive ones.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And isn't it like interesting that everyone's so different and it's about giving kids, I guess, the insight and the skills to use that to their advantage and not feel like there's something wrong with them. Because I feel like myself, if I look at myself, you know, not to say anything about negative about my family because I love them dearly, but I was a drama queen. Like they were just like, you're a drama queen. And I've actually heard myself saying that to my son before, and I'm like, no, don't say that because, I felt like I was too much, and I really am conscious of that. But I also feel like I get really triggered by his response and his resilience and any difficulty he has because I feel it, like I feel it.
Yes. And what the same thing is, my eldest and I, we butt heads like crazy. I think because it's a mixture of, we are both triggered by the same thing, and I'm supposed to be the one that's helping him calm down when I'm like, I'm struggling too, mate.
Yeah.
And then also we just have the best way of like needling each other. But that's the joys of unfortunately making genetic humans, that we pass on all of these wonderful and less wonderful traits.
How old is he now?
He's 5.5.
He's 5. So is he at school?
Yeah, he's started prep this year, which
Yeah.
has been, it's largely good. We've had quite a few drop-offs have been really hard, but drop-offs have been hard for him since he was a baby in daycare. He was one of the kids who took months and months to settle in, and all the educators were like, oh, what's like, not, they didn't say, but you could tell they're like, what's wrong with him?
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, I know, it's just him. We're working through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and don't you reckon, I just feel like as beings we can feel that energy from other people as to that, or what's wrong with him. I just feel like we feel that. We feel that energy from
Yes,
other people. Yeah.
absolutely. Like, if just from humans are social creatures, and we're so good at picking up on cues, and like, it's a survival thing, being able to read the room and read the group and understand our place in it.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And so I'm curious because, Kids Heart Pilates works with both parents through our clinic and also educators. And Em, you also do some work with educators as well. What do you see, what do you see in terms of the crossover or the similarities or differences when working with parents versus educators? Because I think they're really important points of communication, regardless of who you work, like what's going on for the child and the children that you're working with.
Yeah, I think, and you guys, if you're working with educators and in that space, for sure. I think the biggest thing I struggle with is the sector, is that it's not set up
Mm.
in a way that allows them to connect with children easily, which is not their fault. These people are doing the best they can with what they've got, and they're not getting paid even close to enough. They're under-resourced, overworked. Like, you couldn't pay me enough to be an educator, and they don't get anywhere near enough.
Mm.
Like, they're absolutely doing the most amazing and important and beautiful work. Um, and it's just, and I get that all the regulation comes from a good place, but I'm fear that it's focused in the wrong ways. Like, the
Mm.
amount of paperwork and tracking they have to do, it means that they're constantly on an iPad instead of, and for good reason, like legally they're required to note these things down, but it means that they're not often able to engage. And then the ratios are ridiculous. Like, in a baby room, it's 1 to 4. Like, in what world, in what modern world, without massive amounts of medical intervention, do 4 babies survive a pregnancy?
Mm.
Like, it's not, you shouldn't be able to look after 4 children with one person. Like, you can't, not in anyway. And then like in a toddler room, it's 1 to 8 or something, 1 to 6. So the system's broken, but we know that from all of the various conversations that have been happening throughout Australia in the recent weeks. But I think a huge thing, which I think speaks really well to some of the work that you do, Liz, is trying to really emphasize the importance of movement in helping to calm and soothe children. Like the way we soothe babies is we hold them close, we hold them facing inwards, we cuddle them, we sway, we rock. And then probably this speaks to you, Emily, is like we hum, we sing. Like these things are primal. And then I think we forget that these same things that work with babies work with adults. They work with children who are 4, 5, 6. Like there's a reason that dance and music and drumming circles and yoga have been practiced across human culture for centuries and centuries. Like these things work. They're how our bodies process emotion. So like trying to take the like step away from the scripts and the consequence-based behavior strategies and be like, let's connect as humans and use the things that we know that works, like our voice, the tone of our voice. Like it's not what we say, it's how we say it, it's how we communicate, how we connect, how we signal warmth. That's the things that make the real difference.
And are these what you're teaching educators when you go in?
I'm trying to. Yes, yeah.
You would think that educators would get taught this in their studies.
Yeah.
You know what? I think they probably do. I think they're burnt out, and I don't think they've got the capacity to do it. I think and you know what? They're in childcare. They are there 99% of the time for the right reasons, and they really care, but it's that care that pushes them over the edge because they're exhausted and they've been pulled away, like you're saying, to all that paperwork and all the regulations. And I think they're burnt out, and it's getting to a point where it's catastrophic. And I think your point around the ratios is so interesting because it's just interesting talking to other people and hearing, just little insights, right? Because I've never really thought about that. And it's so true. And I don't know what they can do about that. Like I've heard the ECA talking in the last weeks about how no child can be one-on-one with an educator because of the recent catastrophes in childcare centres. I'm like, how is that going to work?
It, like I I'm not will not mention any specific centers, but they're out of ratio all the time. For a sensible reason, someone is dealing with a child that it's to actually
so
quote
true.
unquote fix the problem, the amount of money that's going to be required, it's going to require huge governmental input and change. And I don't know if they're going to do it in a way that will make any, I just worry that quick fixes like getting rid of men, getting rid of phones, which are that's a horrible suggestion. But it calms down the angry mobs.
Well, it's just doing something. It's doing something.
And people are angry for incredibly valid reasons, like for all of the right reasons. But these kind of problems that are this big don't have easy fixes. Otherwise, we would have done them. It's complex systemic change, which is complicated, expensive. And I mean, I don't have the answers. I'm not here I don't know what to do.
And so do you see, because obviously with this, creating relationship and a healthy attachment with children, the downside, so if children are not creating healthy attachment and are not creating that circle of security, is that then what's leading children, probably not, like you can't say one thing is leading, but is this then what we're seeing with a lot of children being dysregulated and not being able to then regulate with others when parents are trying to partner with them? Is that then the playoff of that?
Could be. Like you said, there's no way to know for sure. Obviously, so that children's primary attachment will be their parents. And then they'll have a secondary attachments with grandparents or aunts and uncles or family friends or neighbors as well. And childcare centres are a secondary attachment situation. And so it's not that it has massive like long-term, lifelong psychological consequences, but I can't imagine it doesn't. Certainly in the context of daycare, the high turnover because of staff, like the conditions are hard, the pay is not good, so people don't stay. And of course, like I wouldn't either. But then turnover is high, and then as a result, the person that the child connected with in that room has moved on to a different center,
Right.
and then so they're, and importantly, I think it doesn't affect most kids, or that most kids manage pretty well. But the kids that manage pretty well are our chill kids, our not sensitive kids, the kids who are more resilient. But the ones that it really affects are our more sensitive souls. So they're the ones who are thrown out more easily, who struggle much harder and have a more difficult time.
And is that like across most areas, or we're just talking about more about the emotions,
Yeah.
or?
So I'm focusing on the emotional stuff. I think I don't know if there's any research. So I think there's like mild findings that highly sensitive people tend to be slightly better in academic and like in music, and they tend to be achieve higher, but only if they're supported through secure attachments.
Yeah.
So in the work of Elaine Aron, who talks a lot about sensitivities, she talks about orchid children. So sensitive children are called orchids. And the reason she uses that analogy, is it Elaine Aron or someone else? Anyway, I'm sure we can fact check it later. But talk about orchids because, or like orchid, the plant, if they're temperamental plants in that they're very difficult after, but if you can get it right and if you can give them the kind of care and attention they require, they're one of the most stunning plants in the world. But if they don't have the right environment, they can wither. So they're the kinds of kids who like turn into total geniuses, and like can, like, probably so many of our, like Beethoven and Van Gogh were probably these highly sensitive people.
They changed the world.
But they also are the ones who are more susceptible to addiction, more susceptible to mental health challenges.
Yeah.
So they're the tops and the bottoms, and it all really comes down to whether or not they're able to be emotionally supported.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the outcome in terms of development? Like if we're thinking from a clinical perspective with clinicians that are working with kids, what are the developmental outcomes of children that are not, feeling seen and heard and getting that connection?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the best people I hear talk about this is Dr. Billy Garvey, who has a podcast, Pop Culture Parenting, and he's got a book called 10 Things I Want You to Know About Your Child's Mental Health. And he talks about sensitivity as well and all these kinds of things. And it's mental health difficulties. And obviously that affects all aspects of development. These kids are more likely to experience anxiety, depression, all those kinds of things, which makes sense. Like if you are more sensitive, more easily affected by your environment, by your social interactions, then if you don't feel like you have someone in your corner, you feel, like you said, you feel like you felt too much. You blame yourself, you internalize, and then that can lead to all kinds of difficulties. And we talk again and again about how Australia has a mental health crisis. 46% of Australians are suffering with mental health challenges. So it shows up there. So something about, I think it's highly sensitive people account for the rates vary, but it's something between like 15 and 20% of the population. So pairing up what that maps onto, we can start to see. And then the category below is slow to warm. So people who are sensitive, but that's like another 10 to 15% of people. So they are the kinds of people who just take a long time to get ready, but once they're ready, they jump in. So they're a bit more resilient, but they still have their own difficulties.
Yeah.
What did you
Interesting.
say that they were called?
So they tend to be called slow to warm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And if people want to read more about this, where do they get more information?
Yeah. So Thomas and Chess is the original temperament research from like the 1980s, I think. And then Elaine Aron has a book called Highly Sensitive, The Highly Sensitive Person, I think it's called. And then I'm going to look up, there's a book called The Orchid and the Dandelion.
Okay.
Write this down. I'm going book shopping after we get off
Oh,
this.
wonderful. Yeah, The Orchid and the Dandelion by Thomas Boyce. He's an MD, and he talks all about sensitivity. And like this, I've always been interested in, I always wonder why I didn't do occupational therapy, but I didn't. Like I think I would have loved it, but I didn't take that path. And so I've always been interested in these kinds of topics. And then I had my eldest, who is a sensitive soul, and I've been like, oh, this is what that looks like in practice. Wonderful. So I've had
Yes.
a crash course.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's like obviously I'm interested for my own children, but I think also from like that clinical context, when you have children come into your therapy space or you're working in a group or even in a center, like we'd see kids in centers, there's lots of things to be thinking about, like, as a clinician, like what you're doing, what you're working on, like the teachers or the parents. But then also, this is so important. And we often talk about, we've done a lot of different episodes on challenging behaviors or different types of, um, I guess, like not conditions, but things that children present with in our sessions and how we sort of manage that on the ground and what we do. But this is sort of something that could tie a lot of things together, that we might be seeing in terms of challenges for us, with what children are presenting with, because we see the child, they've come from school or they've come from whatever, and they're just like in your room. So having more tools like this to understand how to unpack children and unpack them quickly, because you really have a certain amount of time
Yeah.
with them in a session, is helpful because, the more that you can pinpoint what's happening with a child or their temperament or how they're feeling, you can sort of just like bypass a lot of things and hopefully try and get in there and try and help them process or support them or be what they need to then be able to help with your therapy. But if you're just feeling like you're in the unknown and fighting it, you can't achieve anything with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you speak to such a beautiful point that rapport is everything when it comes to therapy
Mm.
for children and adults alike. We're not going to work with someone or do the things asked of us that often are very difficult. Like if we're in
Yes.
therapy, it's because we need help. So the
Yes.
things in a speech therapy, it's things that we find hard to do and don't want to do. So you
Mm.
have to like the person who's asking you to do it. So it
Yes.
all comes from a framework of that kind of relationship. And the same is true with educators. Like I have a section in some of my PD where I talk about the real disservice that changing our language from caregiver to educator has done. I think
Okay.
because it takes away the focus that caregiving is educational in the early years, that teaching children that building relationship and the power of relationship is deeply educational. Like that's the foundation from which all learning comes. And of course, again, I understand why we change that language because so often politically people view educators as babysitters and the work is 1,000 times more valuable and difficult than that. But like trying to bring the caregiving back into the lexicon in that, and this is comes from circle of security kind of language, in that children can't go out to explore or learn or gain new knowledge unless they feel supported and connected. So unless that rapport and relationship is there, nothing else can really come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. If they don't feel safe, then, they're not going to try something that's difficult.
Yeah,
No, their
why would
body's
you?
like in fight or flight, like it's not in
Yeah,
a mode to receive information or new information or relax.
Yeah, particularly with things that are difficult already.
Yeah.
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
why they're there, right? Like that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
why they're with
if it
you.
was easy and they had no problems, wouldn't be an issue.
No, exactly. We're not seeing
Exactly.
children in therapy who are within normal limits or above average. So, yes, exactly right. So what kind of do you say to educators? Obviously, when they're
Yeah.
babies, like it's a lot of that touch. What about with children who are maybe like 3?
Yeah.
If they're wanting to build that connection there, how does that look?
So there's lots of different things. The one that I come back to is delight. So finding ways to remember that the child in front of you is a piece of magic,
Mm,
because all children are, all people are, that there's something beautiful inside all of us. And I try to emphasize that this is even more important for the kids that we find difficult, and that the kids who are quote unquote naughty kids, but no kid wants to be naughty.
yeah.
No one is waking up in the day going, right, how am I going to make everyone's life difficult today?
Mm.
They're just finding ways to express their needs, perhaps in unhelpful or unproductive ways. But I really try to focus on helping the educators, mostly through eye contact. I do heaps of eye contact games. And I do a thing where they all hate it, but I make them stare at each other in the eyes. And then very quickly it turns into awkward smiles and then real smiles and then laughter. And I say, look, everyone's laughing and smiling. Eye contact is powerful and important. And if we take a moment to really lock eyes with the children that we're caring for, we can see the sparkle. And that can help us remember. And like you said before, Liz, like the people in this job are there for the right reasons. So it kind of helps them remember that why they're there, why they started this job, and that power of connection is really why they're there, what they want to make a difference in these children's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you do, or what do you recommend, I guess, clinicians do in the instance that you're working with children, or autistic children that don't do eye contact? Do you know what I mean? Like when they're really kind of closed off. What are some strategies that we
Yeah,
can be doing for that?
I think this is true for autistic children and also any child who's deeply dysregulated. Eye contact can be confronting. Even if they're not autistic, it can just be too much. So this always gets a laugh anytime I say it, but I don't know how to phrase it in a way that isn't that. But with a child who's severely dysregulated, like in full meltdown, I always try to treat it like they're a wounded animal, which sounds bad, but like it's about open body language. It's about really slow movements. It's about trying to signal without words, with every other thing, you're safe, I'm here. I had a situation, the other situation that's too strong, but there was a little girl. I was at a center and we were outside, and I was with a different group of kids, but there was a girl. She was maybe, I think she's 3.5, 4. Amity is her name, and she's a sensitive soul, and she used to come into my classes, so I had a slight rapport with her, but that was years ago, so I didn't know if she remembered me. But she was just completely melting down, and the educator, the poor thing, was trying but just wasn't doing it, and she couldn't pick her up because she would thrash, and then she was too big to be able to, anyway. So I just did a thing where I was about 10 meters away from her, and I sat down and put my hands out and just kind of looked in her direction but not at her, and then slowly inched forward. And then I put my hand out again. I think she was holding a book. So when you put a book tag, no, like something, page holder. Bookmark, thank you. There was the word I was looking for. She was holding a bookmark from Sea Life. And I think she thought I was trying to take it, and she held onto it really tight. I said, no, I'm not trying to take it. And then left it for a few more seconds. I said, do you like turtles? Because there was a turtle thing. And her eyes lit up. I was like, I love turtles. And I let that sit for a little bit. I was like, have you ever seen a turtle? And then her body language opened up a bit. I said, I went to Sea Life and I saw some turtles. And then slowly she opened up. I moved a bit closer. So it's just about trying to find an in and not rushing it more than anything.
Yeah, like no pressure, there's no threat. It's I went to the ECA conference last year, and there was a talk on autism and working with children for educators, and the presenter was an educator with autism, and so it was really interesting perspective. And she was just saying, because autistic children can struggle to play with other children, and so she was talking about parallel play and how to sit down next to them, not even talking to them, not like there's no pressure to connect even. It was just starting to play what they were playing and then go, oh, look, the sand in my truck fell out. And, it was really simple but powerful, I thought. And it kind of feels very similar to what you're saying. And if I reflect on what I have done for so many years in childcare centres, is just sit on the ground and get on their level, like just getting down on their level, and not forcing connection, just inviting it, right?
Yeah, I think and again, this is like got to do with the embodiment, is that so often educators, and again, I get where it comes from, and I see this parents in the playground. There's a kid who's losing it, and they're like, come here. I'm like, no, their brain's offline. They can't organize their body to move to come to you. Like, you have to go to them. You have to sit on the ground next to them. You have to go to them. And like, it's just, they're not capable. Like, you have to kind of imagine that they're in shutdown. So you have to take the action.
And I think something that's also really powerful there is, you know, calming yourself, because if they're completely dysregulated, and even if you're getting on their level but you're dysregulated because it's really aggravating you, or you know, you're rushing out the door or whatever, and I'm just thinking of all these instances that I do this with my children, but you know, like if you are not modeling that sort of regulation and you're not regulated, then it's really going to impact that, right? So
Yeah,
I think
massive.
from an educator perspective, from a practitioner clinical perspective, we need to make sure that we are filling our own cup throughout the day. We're having periods where so we're going into those sessions like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, in ourselves, because we can't expect
Yeah.
that from them.
And even
Yeah.
if we're like super focused on ourselves as a clinician, because maybe we're new to being a clinician, or it's a new kind of complexity of child that we're dealing with, or a case, even in that, when you have to have that self-awareness to be like, okay, I am feeling a little bit out of my clinical depth, maybe because this is a new situation, but I need to actually have some regulation strategies for myself and have a little bit of resilience and, you know, some affirmations of, I know, like, I will be able to get through this. You know, I'm a good clinician, even though it's new, and then actually then be able to focus on the child in front of you. Because I think that's the hard part,
Mm,
right? When you're trying to be the clinician and trying to, or even as an
mm.
educator, going, okay, like, what am I doing? Like, what, you know, am I doing everything right? Like, focusing on yourself. Then you're not sort of being present to then regulate with the children. So yeah, both levels, right?
And it's so difficult and so much easier said than done. Like, I'm
Yes.
a human person, and I have my children, and they drive me up the wall sometimes, just as I drive them up the wall. And so there's times where I muck it up constantly.
Yeah.
And like, that's the power of repair and being able to come and own our own mistakes and be like, I'm really sorry. I was really
Mm.
grouchy just now. That wasn't fair. That was my thing. And that's not your fault.
And we
Or
can do that in therapy too, right? Like
yeah,
I do that
yes.
as a parent. Like if I get snappy with the kids, or you know, all of the things. Choose any of the things. I won't specify. But when I'm doing that, and I tend to I'm much better at it now, but I tend to pick myself up in that point and I go, I'm really sorry. This isn't actually about you. This is mummy. Mummy's not feeling very good in herself right now. And remember, we talk about when we're not feeling good, sometimes it comes out, because I've spoken to my boys about bullying and how that's coming from a place of pain and you know, unsafe and all of these things. So I kind of try to phrase that as I with my children, but we can also do that in therapy. We can say, you know, we can catch ourselves in that moment and say, I'm sorry, I was feeling really unsettled by what was happening, and I just need to sit down. Like, I think we can call that, right?
And I am also slowly getting better at catching myself, like you say, Liz. And I think just being able to say, oh, I'm a bit overwhelmed right now. I'm going to take a
Mm,
second to sit down over here. I'm going to take 3 deep breaths. You can join me if you want to.
mm,
And just, and I think verbalizing that is so helpful, because then it helps
so good.
signal to kids like, oh, adults aren't infallible, which is how I was kind of raised.
Yeah.
That we're humans too, and we're all figuring this out together. And I really loved what you were saying, Emily, about how we can get stuck in our own head. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love the idea of connection and delight so much, is that it forces us back to be with the person in front of us, and remember that, like, all of the strategies in the world that we might feel a bit insecure about, we haven't remembered to use the right one, or the one that we were using isn't working, is that the rapport is the most important, because I can have the best strategy for this situation, but if the child doesn't feel connected to me or safe with me in this environment, it's not going to work. So,
Mm.
like, taking that breath and making sure that first and foremost, the foundation of everything is always that connection, and then figure it out together from there.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know about you guys, but I always feel like much better instantly whenever I say to my kids, "Oh, hang on. I accidentally just lost it. Like that was it. And even just me saying that, I
Yeah.
automatically like, it's just like I just come straight back down, like from a heightened emotion. Even that statement in itself, it must be something about the self-awareness or just releasing
Well,
it, like
I
going,
think
oh, I
you're
was feeling very
labeling it.
overwhelmed. Yeah,
You're
labeling.
labeling
Yeah.
it. You're separating that from yourself. So it's like, I am not an angry person. I just felt angry. And I think that is really powerful. It's like, I am feeling anxious. I am not anxious all the time. Do you know what I mean? It's my
Yeah.
friend told me that. She's like, don't say you're anxious. Say I'm feeling anxious because it's about separating that from your identity. And so you're not this, I think, I don't know. That's just what came
Yeah,
up to
no,
me.
there's heaps of research to show, and there's like different languages that don't actually, I think it's Spanish and Irish. They don't say I'm sad. They say I have sadness. And it's the idea
Mm,
of like state versus trait. Trait being like I am an anxious person.
yeah.
State being like I'm currently experiencing anxiety can really shift our identity and how we think about ourselves. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
it's
the
so
more we
interesting.
say it, that's us modeling it, right? That's teaching children. So it's really, really important to do as parents, but also for anyone that's working with kids, because as clinicians, we are, I can't remember what you called it before, but that you've got your attachment people, like your primary attachment, and then you've got your secondary. We would come in
Yep.
that, wouldn't we? We're catching up
Yep.
with them every week. We're working
Mm.
on all these things that are difficult. So, we are one of those people, and so we need to be modeling that. And I think also what I was thinking when you guys were talking is just about the importance of communicating this to the parents and saying, I this is the goal for this, like the goal for the first few sessions is really to rebuild build that connection and that rapport. And throughout therapy, if I find that we're having difficulties with regulation, we're going to step back from, the modalities of intervention, and we might be just connecting. And sometimes that doesn't look like it, but it's a really necessary part, which I think is really important, as is getting information at the start to set yourself up for success, to build that rapport so that you understand whether you're dealing with a child that's got those sensitivities, those sensitive children. Yeah, I think that communication is really important in therapy.
Yeah,
Massively. I've
absolutely.
got a cousin who um his partner is a speechy as well, and he likes to prod her and say, all you do is play games with children.
Mm,
Oh,
And
everyone
it's like,
says that.
I know, but like I actually think that's the most important part, because it's obviously the games are functional because they're like
Yes,
language games, but the
yes,
game is the point. It's play, it's
yeah.
yes.
connection, like it's a dual thing, and you need both or you have neither.
Yes, this is why
Yeah.
I teach my students that parent education is so important because they
So
say
important.
statements like that.
Yep.
I remember I
Yep.
had one father, he was like quite an older father, like come in, and I had like a 3-year-old, and he said that statement to me, and I was like, right, no. And then from
Let
then
me
on, I've
tell
just
you.
made it like an integral part of my practice. And with all my girls, I'm like, we are going to educate parents about this, like when they come in, so that they know that we are not just playing with kids, but that's how children learn and that's how they grow. And, we're not making therapy boring. So we're not going to sit here and just
No.
do drill exercises.
Yep, no one, no, exactly. People like, and I mean, it's the same with even any kind of, I guess school is probably the last bastion where we don't do this as much. But
Yeah.
anytime you get taught as an adult, if you want to learn something, make it fun. If you want to play a
Yeah.
sport, make sure you enjoy it. Like
Yeah.
humans are
So
designed to
true.
play. Like it
Yeah.
has to
Why
be
are we
fun.
trying to make it not fun? It makes absolutely no sense. It's so
Yeah.
weird.
The
Exactly.
school system's probably to blame for that, right? Because it's such like
Yeah.
from kindy to year 12, it's such a big thing. And then that's what people get, like
Absolutely.
education and uni. They go, right, it's just sitting in a boring lecture theatre, listening to someone drone on, and could be a lot better done, right? That's another can of worms that we won't open there.
That's for the next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a really interesting perspective that I've been experiencing lately in therapy with my children is that key component of communication, just outlining, like you can be sitting there playing games, but just outlining what your goal is or what your observation is or some form of communication so that the parent can almost like just on the same wavelength, I think. Because I'm doing quite a few therapies with my kids at the moment because I've just gone into like, let's be really preventative and really on this. And what I've noticed is I have a completely different response to the same therapy with one communicating to me and one not. So I think it's just, parents come to therapy to get some observation and an external opinion, to get some strategies to take home. And I think that communication is just that added layer, and it's something that we are really focused on at Kids Heart Pilates, and I feel like we do that maybe some movement centers don't do. I'm not sure, but we just get that feedback a lot that the communication is really important, and that's coming from, I think, me working with educators and going into centers. And they're like, oh, we can do this. Like, this is just, you're just like dancing around the place and moving. Like, we can do this. And it's like, no, we're actually doing A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So I think like I've really come from that. I need to, and particularly exercise physiology is not as well known in the pediatric sector. So I feel like I've always had to explain it. And so it's really something part of what I do, which I think is really important. Yeah. So it's interesting having both perspectives, I think, and as a parent.
I think like parents, like they're there because they care and they want to know, they want to learn, they want to be able to help. So even like just like as a learning opportunity, like it gets, I think in psychology we tend to call it psychoeducation, but it's about educating parents on what this is, how it works, why it's helpful, and why you're choosing to do this instead of that, and why this is the focus, and that next week this will be the focus, and basically like layperson in your care plan about
Yeah.
like there is a
Yeah.
structure, there is a plan, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and then you can also like I can leave that therapy session as the parent and talk to my husband who may not have been able to be there and go, oh, this was the goal today, and these are the strategies that we're going to do at home. So it involves him, and then like it's really important. I cannot stress it. Like just going through it as a parent, so incredibly important.
And you guys would know, of course, like the point of therapy, it's you're supposed to do your practice at home. Like
Yeah.
therapy is a 1 hour a week. If it's not happening at home, cool, but you coming for the next however many years instead of however many months. So the more parents understand, the more readily they're probably willing they are to engage in the practice, but also understand how and why the practice is important.
Absolutely. I think we did an episode on that, Lizzie, didn't we, in the earlier episodes of our podcast channel about parents and their engagement.
Yes,
We've done probably a few episodes on it because it's so important. And it's just not taught enough at uni, I mean, in our degrees, but probably with educators as well, I guess.
I just think new grads are a bit scared of parents. And my reframe for my team was, you're the advocate, like you are advocating for that child, and so you need to be going to that parent, have you done X, Y, and Z? What do you want to get out of this? And this is what you need to be doing at home, and you need to go and see the OT, and you need to see the speechy, and I think that's really important. And I've definitely felt the benefits of that with my kids in therapy is going, oh, I need to book in the dentist before I go to my next speech because she's going to ask me about it. And that's like me holding, because I'm busy, like, and it's overwhelming the number of things that, we need to do. So I think, that's a really important aspect of our position and our work as well.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming today. That has been just so many nuggets there in terms of connection and the way that we can be talking to both children and parents, and your research. Like, just I love how you just layer research into everything. I think it's really, I mean, from my clinical perspective, I always see it and I go, yes, I love that. I love that. I just love research. And one day I will pick your brain about PhD because it's definitely something on my radar.
It's really rewarding, incredibly difficult, but you're a mum, so you'll be fine.
Yeah. I'm like, am I crazy? But yeah. Anyway, that is a whole nother conversation. But thank you so much for your time. I know you're so busy, and I really, just am so appreciative of you sharing your wealth of knowledge with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute joy. I can't believe the time's gone as quickly as it has.
I know. We'll pick up time.
Thank you, Siobhan.
Exactly.
We'll drop all of your
Thanks.
links and channels and things like that below so everyone can connect with you and have a look at your courses and, yeah, get more information from you if they have loved listening to you, which I'm sure they have.
Well, thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks so much. Until next time, we'll see you guys. We'll be in your ears next week. See you later.